Do you know how many people come out of the sexuality closet and have to go into the political closet or the opinions closet because they demand complete opinion uniformity?
Okay. Interesting.
Do you know how many messages I get from gay people who are just too scared to come out? Because a lot of their life revolves around being gay. Their social circles involve hanging out with other gay men and things like that. And they're shit scared of losing friends because if they express their opinions, they will be gaslighted, blacklisted, and kicked out and lose the entire social setting that they're in. And you know, one of the organizations that does this is called Pride Circle, which is which interfaces, it's meant to interface LGBTQ people with employers, and they will gaslight you, blacklist you, and kick you out if you're remotely conservative. See, I'm very good at my job, so I've not had to suffer because of any of this. Right. But think about the people who actually depend on these social networks to get into companies and things like that. Right? It's a horrible life.
नमस्ते, स्वागत है आपका इंडिया दिस वीक के एक नए एपिसोड में। मैं हूं आपकी होस्ट आमना खालिद के साथ।
Hi, this is Khalid Beg and we welcome again everyone's favorite Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Welcome back, Abhijit.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm giving you my divine mudras because you said today is going to be about me. So yes. let me, auspiciously inaugurate this. I'm too fat to put up my lotus feet and bless all your viewers with my lotus feet. So my lotus hands will have to do.
Right. So this is today Coffee with Amana and Khalid. He's sexy, he's bald, he's fit, he's the most eligible intellectual gay of India. Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit, all right, so let's ask you questions which nobody's asked you per se, but little bit, you're a Tambram born into Lutyens. Parents were influential people in India's bureaucracy. Tell us about your childhood. Tell us about your parents. Tell us about where you were born and brought up.
Okay. So I was born in Madras, and the thing was, I felt I was always a problem kid. I don't think I've ever been to a school where I didn't create havoc. And the standard complaint that all the teachers used to have about me used to be that itna intelligent bachcha hai par itna shaitan kyun hai? Padhai kyun nahi karta hai? And every time I was abroad, the padhai wasn't the problem. It was all the other mischief, like setting off firecrackers in the school and crap like that, that used to become a problem. Right? Now, for me, the most interesting part, my schools, I don't have very good memories of schools. Mostly because it's largely faded. And second, when you grow up, life becomes so much more interesting. I think my tomorrow is so much more interesting than my yesterday that, the memory tends to fade quite quickly. Let me give you an example. So, for example, for about 2 years, I studied in the school called Tyndale Bisco in Srinagar.
You studied in Bisco? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a Bisco boy. Na? Okay. And like this time when I went back in September 2019, when after the abrogation of 370, I was like, oh, this is such a nice school. But my memory of that school wasn't very nice at that time. Right? वो डंडे से मारते थे लोगों को, पता है? और मेरे को तो रोज डंडे से मार पड़ती थी. I used to keep doing crap. So we traveled a lot. I don't think I studied at any school for more than about 2-3 years, right? Because my parents would keep getting posted in different places. And finally, because my mom was Tamil Nadu cadre, she finally got posted to Madras, and then I shifted to Madras, and I had at least 4 stable years in Madras. And then, the school I went to was a school called Vidya Mandir Mylapore, which is like a typical Agraharam school. So it's like your Brahmin Central of Madras, and studied there and moved to a college right
That's where you
across
learned
the
your
road.
Brahminical oppression.
That's where I learned how to oppress people.
Yes.
Like, so for example, to look down on people who are of mixed blood, and people who are lower down the ladder than me, people who are darker than me, people who are not as Hindu as me. I learned all of that there. And I shifted to Vivekananda College, which is right next door, to do my BCom. Incidentally, I flunked my BCom at least one of the exams once, because like commerce really wasn't for me. I still don't understand commerce. I don't understand business. I don't understand finance at all. I understand economics. So economics I always did well at, but all the accounts and business studies stuff, shit, we used to go right over my head. I also used to suck at maths, by the way. It depended. It depended on the teacher. Like, some of my maths teachers were very good and I'd consistently score at the top of my class. And when I didn't like my maths teacher, I would get down to 11 on 100, 12 on 100 kind of scores.
Right. Interesting.
But
So
yeah.
you had spoken about like born into Lutyens. If you could elaborate about that.
भाई उन दिनों में ना लुटियंस कुछ बड़ा नहीं होता था, पता है? आजकल बहुत बड़ा. See, I think.
Sorry, both your parents were IAS? Both
parents were? No, my dad was IAAS, Audits and Accounts Service.
Okay.
With the CAG's office. Okay. But then he was in the defense ministry, because, in the defense ministry, you can't work for more than 8 years at a stretch. You have to leave and come back because, it's considered sensitive and all of that. But anyway, तो इसमें क्या हुआ कि my dad got posted to Delhi after quite some time, and he used to enjoy it. We used to live first in Bharati Nagar, which was opposite Khan Market, where I actually witnessed the anti-Sikh riots. I think somebody was necklaced outside, a Sikh was necklaced outside Khan Market, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember going out and seeing some bodies and things like that, till my grandmother got super furious and dragged me back in. The second stint in Delhi was when we had shifted to Chanakyapuri. Now remember, this was all pre-liberalization days, right? So India wasn't rich, right? The money to go around and the power to dictate other people's lives was very limited in those days. So you couldn't, I guess, throw around nakras and tantrums like you do today. At the same time, with my mom, she finally, she was posted to all these little districts and things, and she was posted then to Madras. She was never posted to Delhi. And in Madras, it's like nobody really gives a damn. So when people say, oh, Lutyens ye, Lutyens wo, like I'm looking at people hankering around after joint secretaries and additional secretaries these days in Delhi. And I grew up with joint secretaries and additional secretaries coming to my house, and secretaries coming to my house and joking around, making both my mom and dad used to keep cracking off-color jokes with their colleagues, right? So it's like, तुम क्या देखते हो इन लोग, इतना रेवरेंस कहाँ से आता है तुमको इन लोगों को देख के? क्योंकि मेरा तो रेवरेंस कभी नहीं आता था. और मेरा क्या होता था, what was worse was, see, both my parents were pretty honest bureaucrats. So, I used to, in Delhi, for example, I went to DPS. And there used to be rich kids out there, and, we couldn't afford to compete with them, boss. Like, we didn't get what they did. And I think in Delhi, see, in Madras in those days, now in Madras, you'll find a lot of mercs and crap like that. But in those days, everybody used to come to school in a Maruti, maximum wo Fiat Padmini hota tha na. Usme aate the. There was no choice, and you did not show off in those days. Whereas in Delhi, बहुत दिखावा होता था. मैं अपने स्कूल में पापा के गाड़ी में आया. We didn't even have पापा की गाड़ी to take me to school, right? It was a bus. Everybody took the bus. Right. And before that, when we lived in Bharati Nagar, my dad didn't even have, well, he had a car, but it was a office bus, a CAG office bus that used to come and pick him up from the same bus stand where the school bus used to pick me up. आजकल ये बहुत नखरा चलता है, पता है? हम स्कूल को अपने बच्चों को बस गाड़ी में बेचते हैं जी, and things like that. There was nothing, yeah. You know what made me feel most at home was going to Pyongyang.
Okay.
Pyongyang reminded me of my childhood in Delhi. उन दिनों में ना भारती नगर, imagine outside Khan Market. अगर तुमने दिन में 20 गाड़ियां देख ली, बहुत बड़ी चीज होती
Right.
है, right? And it used to be like, oh, I saw a car, and then you wait for another 10 minutes to see another car, right?
Right.
And it used to be like hilarious, like, and Pyongyang literally gave me that. The only difference was in those days we used to get better वो Campa Cola or Gold Spot जो होते थे और Thumbs Up जो होते थे, they were far better than the equivalent Atmanirbhar North Korea soft drinks that we got in Pyongyang, which were
Right.
disgusting. But it's not as glam as being the kid of a diplomat or bureaucrat these days.
Right. Growing up in the 80s, I need to give it the coffee with current twist. Humble beginnings, surrounded by rich and powerful, been there, done that, and done a Bharat Darshan. That's Abhijit's childhood. Amna, your question.
Yeah.
अभिजीत, चाइल्डहुड के बाद टीनेज आता है, तो अपने टीनेज के बारे में बताइए अभी हमें, कैसा था आपका टीनेज?
I guess very hormonally charged, right? There's lots of shit happening with you, and the hormones kicking in does nothing to help it. And it became more problematic at school, I guess. But then again, you know, like it depended on teacher to teacher. Like they used to have a big fight in the staff room over me because half the teachers would say कितना अच्छा लड़का है, बहुत अच्छा मार्क स्कोर करता है, and the other half would say कितना बुद्धू है, कुछ भी स्कोर नहीं कर पाता है, kind of thing, right? And then, you know, there was all the discovery. I used to lie a lot. तो वो भी बहुत मजा आता था. You know, बहुत लोगों को भड़काता था एक दूसरे के खिलाफ, पता है? I was a horrible kid. I was a genuinely horrible kid. So it's very funny with the benefit of hindsight, but I don't think it was very funny for the people it affected in those days.
Right. And so Abhijit, people say, you know, Abhijit writes across topics and, you know, he has an opinion about everything under the sun. So one wants to know, what are your qualifications? What have you studied in your bachelor's, master's, and PhD?
So my bachelor's was my BCom. My I have two masters, one in gastronomy and one in international relations. And now I'm doing my PhD, which is in war studies, right? Yeah. And I also did a Swiss degree in hospitality management as well. Okay. So it was, so it was, I wasn't so broadly opinionated till I joined ORF, right? And what happened there was I joined ORF with a distinct agreement that I would only work on defense and foreign policy. And my boss there, Sameer Saran, told me very clearly, he told me to my face, Abhijit, tu chutiya hai, right? Because his philosophy was that if you work in a silo, you will always be wrong. You need to broad base yourself as much as possible, find out. So for 1 year, he wouldn't let me touch defense and foreign policy. He wanted me to work on nutrition. He wanted me to work on gender equality. He wanted me to work on water, on solar power, on green energy, everything except defense. And you know what it did was you would meet brilliant people who showed you why things were going wrong in defense. When you extrapolated the problem to defense, you understood why we couldn't actually become, and you know, I realized why we couldn't become self-sufficient in defense, because I got pushed into things like education policy, where I realized how bad the education in this country is. And a basic cost-benefit analysis. You spend about $20 billion on education, whereas just to make a basic factory floor workforce, you need to spend about $500-600 billion on education. So if you don't have a workforce that's trained to be a factory floor workforce, how are you going to produce manufacturing crap, right? Of course, I knew economics, but so those years of learning other policy and realizing how wrong you had been, or not wrong, but blinkered, tunnel vision. बस डिफेंस में अगर हम ये खरीद लेते हैं टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर हो जाएगा. अगर टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर भी होगा, you will not be able to absorb that technology. So these were all things I learned simply because Samir Saran forced me to do everything else, right? And I've had these 3 fantastic mentors who keep pushing me to do everything else. So Subramanian Swamy, Samir Saran, and Kanchan Gupta, who've kind of seen कि ये बहुत problem child है, पर हम इसको कैसे best इसका human resource management कर सकते हैं, right? And my current boss, Gautam Sabarwal, he's like, he loves me being crazy. So, it requires people who like nut jobs to employ me. And they take me with all the baggage, both the negative and the positive. So I've been very lucky, I guess, to find employers like that. And I've always tried to nurture and forward the careers of problem kids like me.
Right. Sorry, you were saying you're doing a PhD in what?
War studies.
Well, it's a very long, complicated PhD thesis, so I'm not going to give it to you. It's just, trust me, if I go into it, it'll take 20 minutes.
Just tell us the title.
War studies. It's it's basically defense related, yeah.
So when can we call you Dr. Abhijit Iyer Mitra?
पता नहीं यार, देखते हैं. This is my second PhD. My first PhD had to be abandoned. You know what happened? My supervisor had a psychological breakdown, and this was in Australia. He had a psychological breakdown and he got derostered. Then they found me a second supervisor who it turned out was having an affair or whatever. No, he had 2-3 wives in 2-3 different cities in Australia. So he got sacked. Then the third supervisor they gave me was this guy who retired 2 months later. I was like, what the hell, man? And finally, I was already super demoralized. And then what happened was the University of Melbourne stole the entire humanities faculty of the University of Monash University. And that was like, Gaya, now I'm not doing my PhD anymore. Screw you. So it took me another 10-15 years to manage the courage then to start up a next PhD.
Okay.
Right.
Which is
totally. We have a Melbourne connection there. Amna, you want to ask a question or should I go?
No, I will ask. So, Abhijit, what your opinion on LGBT movement?
Look, I think as long as it was fighting for rights, it was a wonderful movement. But when you get into this taking offense at everything, I've just stopped dealing with them, associating with them, and all of that. Like, look, being gay is... I'm gay, fine. But my entire personality doesn't revolve around sleeping with men. I do other things. I cook, I travel, I come on TV, I write crap in newspapers. I have a life, I have dogs, I have cats to look after. I have loving relationships with all my friends that I care about. I have less loving relationships with acquaintances who are still fun to hang out with, etc., etc., etc. This is just one tiny little part of me. So first of all, I've never understood how your life must be really hollow if your sexuality defines everything about you. At the same time, I'm also very grateful. So, the people who actually fought for gay rights in this country, people like Ashok Rao Kavi, who was really persecuted, had to pay a huge personal burden and things like that. It's because of people like that we probably have the rights in India today that we do globally, right? It's like, third wave feminism. My mother is a third wave feminist and she made me militantly, pro-abortion, pro-women's rights and all of that. My issue is when it comes to this current fourth wave feminism, which has kind of been completely absorbed and merged into LGBTQ rights and intersectionality and all that crap, which I simply can't support, right? For example, the people who used to work with my mom, all the men, they used to shit bricks, right? But she didn't have to dress like a man or be butch or anything like that. She's still very, very feminine, right? She didn't have to demand respect. It was just given to her. Now I accept that's her experience. It may not be everybody's experience. How do we change that? It doesn't mean you go into intersectionality and crap like that, because, it's not everything is intersectional. And for me, this whole thing, Pride Parade, I would have been fine with Pride Parade, were it not for holding up Free Kashmir and Free Palestine slogans out there. Okay. I have come to celebrate my sexuality publicly. मैं पैलेस्टाइन या कश्मीर के बारे में क्यों बात करूंगा? जहां मेरे को कश्मीर के बारे में बात करना है, वो दूसरा फोरम है, इस पे नहीं है. And what does my sexuality have to do with freeing Kashmir? Quite the contrary. If Kashmir gets free, assume Kashmir ever gets free, I will be thrown off a rooftop in Srinagar for being gay. And you want me to support that? Are you kidding me? So I'm sorry to say this, but the LGBTQ movement in this country has been hijacked by ऐसे साले एक की कॉम मैंने देखी नहीं है. And they are the worst, most close-minded, horrible, nasty little lumps of shit, the leadership, the overwhelming majority of the leadership of that community. Do you know how many people come out of the sexuality closet and have to go into the political closet or the opinions closet because they demand complete opinion uniformity?
Okay. Interesting.
Do you know how many messages I get from gay people who are just too scared to come out? Because a lot of their life revolves around being gay. Their social circles involve hanging out with other gay men and things like that. And they're shit scared of losing friends because if they express their opinions, they will be gaslighted, blacklisted, and kicked out and lose the entire social setting that they're in. And one of the organizations that does this is called Pride Circle, which is which interfaces, it's meant to interface LGBTQ people with employers, and they will gaslight you, blacklist you, and kick you out if you're remotely conservative. See, I'm very good at my job, so I've not had to suffer because of any of this. Right. But think about the people who actually depend on these social networks to get into companies and things like that. Right? It's a horrible life. They're nasty little lumps of shit, and I hope they croak and die.
You said a very beautiful thing, Abhijit, that it must be a very horrible existence where you are basically boiling down everything about your vajood, your identity, your limited time on this planet through just one identity. And in this case, you spoke about gay. And that made me think that is exactly the problem with every extremist in the world, right? There are Muslims who throughout 24/7 just want to look at them as Muslims, as supreme over everybody. There are ultra nationalists who 24/7 just want to look at, okay, this is the greatest country and dare you say anything. And and then there are the Hindu Garvs, which are obviously lesser compared to what Abrahamic faiths have. But that is the tragedy with anyone who takes just one identity and just 24/7, and that could be within an LGBT, within a Muslim, within a Hindu, within a Christian fundamentalist, within a hyper-nationalist. It binds all of them.
Exactly. And this is where I think me being a bit of a schizo actually helps, because depending on the time of the day, I'm either a Bengali supremacist or a Tamil supremacist, or I feel I'm superior to the average Tamil because I can speak Hindi without a Madrasi accent, or I feel superior without feeling Tamil. I feel superior to the Bong because I can say I can speak Hindi without saying "Uri Baba, ek hi ho gaya hai" kind of thing. Okay, I feel superior to a Hindi speaker that I can speak English better. I feel superior to a like I said, a Tamil speaker because I can speak Hindi better. Some days I feel I'm a great cook. Some days I feel I'm a great baker. Some day it actually switches from R to R. Some days I feel I'm anti-Hindu. Some days I feel I'm pro-Hindu. Some days I feel किस मंदिर में जाके नाच करूं. Of course, the last time ended me up in jail. But so whatever. But I don't fit into any bucket. Like, I don't categorize myself in any bucket.
Right.
Right.
And that's why it's important to celebrate
fundamentally
every identity of oneself, right? Everything that one
Yeah,
is.
yeah. But shouldn't a normal person be complicated? Should a normal person have lots of facets to their existence, where no one
Absolutely.
facet should completely overwhelm everything else?
Right. Absolutely. True.
And you're absolutely right. I never thought of it that way, but I'm stealing that definition from you, where, you know, where one identity subsumes everything else is what makes you an extremist.
Also, we face this problem, like whenever we talk or say anything, everybody looks at us like from the Muslim identity, which sometimes pisses me off because I'm so much many things. I'm an Indian, I'm a woman, I'm a Pashmanda Muslim, फिर और भी बहुत सारी personality है मेरी, but सिर्फ मुस्लिम ही हूँ क्या मैं? So that is like something very
But see,
problematic.
exactly, and you know, that happens to me also. Oh, he's a Sanghi. Everything is Sanghi lens. Or ye sala homo hai. Everything is homo lens. ठीक है? So, you know, I get it. Like, it's just so cringe, man. Like, what do you do? It's just, look, the thing, what gets me through the day is the fact that people like that are very few and far between.
Right.
They are very loud and vocal, sure. But 99.99% of the people I deal with or have chosen to deal with are very, very nice people.
Right. No, and especially, Amna, when we get tagged, what is this happening in your community? Like, अरे मैंने ठेका नहीं लगा रखा है भाई. I'm not going to be apologetic. I'm not a part of this industry which is like there's a certain wave. So now let me say, हाँ देखो ये क्या कर रहे हैं. Where we think we need to call it out. We need to be honest with our house. But apart from that, we are not playing this game. मुझे क्यों पूछ रहा है यार? I mean, let's talk something else, you know. So, right. Abhijit, next question. Fun question. For you, who's the greatest leader for you personally for India in the last 100 years, and why? Who do you admire? Who do you admire passionately?
See, I would have said Sardar Patel had he lived long enough after independence.
Okay.
But he did not, which is the same reason I'm not going to say Lal Bahadur Shastri either, because he did not live long enough to do much. I'd have to say PV Narasimha Rao.
Okay.
I think what little time he had, he used it in the most meaningful way possible and did something that affects us on so many levels. See, people will just say liberalization. They don't talk about, you know, say the rural to urban. Because of what he did, we transformed to a largely rural to a largely urban, even though technically on paper we're 60% rural. We're actually, if you look at it, we're almost about 60% urban, because, you know, even in cities, you have basti and things which count as rural areas, right? So in the middle of Delhi, you will have a quote-unquote rural area, right? There are things, and there were both positive and negative outcomes. So, for example, your quality institutions like JNU, which were meant to cater to the 10% who were urban elites with good quality education, got swamped by everybody coming in from the villages and urbanizing. And it became a quantity institution which none of our colleges have been able to really cope with, right? Mixed bag, but he achieved so much. For me, I think PV Narasimha Rao is truly the real father of the nation, till we get somebody greater who comes after.
अभिजीत, आपके फेवरेट हिंदी मूवी सुपरस्टार एक्टर कौन होंगे अगर कोई होगा तो?
Has to be a superstar and has to be an actor. I know it's tough being both a superstar and an actor.
यार ये सुपरस्टार क्या होता है जिसके सब पिक्चर हिट हों?
नहीं, अमिताभ बच्चन, दिलीप कुमार, superstars as well as known as actors. Shahrukh Khan, Rajesh Khanna.
See, I'll be very honest with you. I can't sit through Hindi movies, boss. Like,
Okay.
I think in the last 10 years, I've seen about 3-4 Hindi movies. Okay. Drishyam 1 and Drishyam 2
Okay.
and Padmavat.
Okay.
I took a Korean friend to watch Padmavat. I've enjoyed all 3 movies. And I really enjoyed the first half of Tare Zameen Pe till Amir Khan showed his face, and then it went downhill from that point on after the intermission.
Okay.
Sarkar and Sarkar Raj.
Okay.
Yeah. So other than that, the issue is I haven't. And I've liked the
So you don't have like an
story, I have liked the
all-time
acting.
amongst the 80 years that it's been, like a Dilip Kumar, Amitabh Bachchan, Rajesh Khanna, Shah Rukh Khan? No one. Okay.
No one.
Your all-time favorite Hindi movie? No. None?
No, I think there should be 2 or 3.
Sure.
When I say all-time favorite, it's not something I mean I can't watch the same movie again and again unless it's Star Wars or
Right. But
just
something which you
Star
find
Wars
has stood the test of time and is an incredible movie.
Jaane Bhi Do Yaron and Trikal.
Okay.
Okay. I'm a
And
Bollywood buff
favorite
and I haven't watched
Bollywood
Trikal,
movie?
so.
Okay, so Jaane Bhi I think both are Nasruddin Shah, and Jaane
Okay.
Bhi Do Yaron was just a very light, nice, funny movie. And Trikal was about Nasruddin Shah, who's coming back to Goa. He grew up in Portuguese Goa and he's coming back to post-independence Goa. And it's all about these stories of how life was when the Portuguese ruled it. And it's a lovely story because everybody actually acted really, really well in that movie. I really enjoyed that. And I think, I'm sure if I watched it again, I would still enjoy how it is. I'd say Trikal is one of those movies that would actually match up to Iranian movies in terms of quality.